Hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to today's Ingles on the Beach show, talking Georgia sports with you. I'm going to include a little bit of basketball. Have to do that, of course. The Georgia basketball Bulldogs are in Hawaii in the Maui Invitational. They'll be playing here in about an hour and a half. They'll tip off against Michigan State, 2:30 at the Lahaina Civic Center. Been there once before. It holds about 2,500 people. Those preseason tournaments have a real festive holiday environment. Worth putting on your bucket list if you ever get the chance to see Georgia play basketball. And the Caribbean is a good spot. Hawaii is a great spot. This is Georgia's first ever trip to the Maui Invitational. It's one of the most prestigious tournaments out there. And, you might say, well, what's the value of this? They got beat by 19 points yesterday by Dayton. Well, the value is Georgia got a reality check. And we're talking a lot about football here in a minute. I just want to start out talking about the basketball team because I decided to do a very predictable angle for the show today. Things to give thanks for if you're a Georgia football fan. This has been a nice distraction, hasn't it? A 4-0 basketball start. They've beat Georgia Tech 5 times in a row for the first time since 1941. Hasn't happened. They've got a lottery pick in Anthony Ant-Man Edwards. He's a very charismatic young man. He's fun to watch. Gets along with everyone. I think it's provided a lift. Tom Crean is interesting. You may not like him. You may like him. But if nothing else, he's an interesting person. I think he does a very good job. He did a great job at Indiana. Pretty much rebuilt that program after it was waylaid by the NCAA. Had to start from scratch. And won 2 outright Big Ten titles there at Indiana. Coach of the Year in 2016. Took Marquette to a Final Four. But for Crane, it all started with Tom Izzo at Michigan State, which is where I went to school. And I covered Tom Izzo not too long ago, 2012 to 2016. I know what Georgia's walking into today. Probably the best rebounding team in America year in and year out. Certainly one of the toughest and most physical. So this is good for the baby Bulldogs, as I think of them, with the 9 freshmen, for the baby Bulldogs to play a team like Michigan State. And they'll see where the bar is set. And that's the whole point of this preseason tournament and what the basketball teams gets out of it. There's going to be growth from this, okay? Maybe ugly watching it, maybe some growing pains, but basketball is not like football. You just have to survive in basketball. You can lose games, nobody cares. You can still make the NCAA tournament with a tournament run by winning the SEC tournament or by winning 20 games with the type of schedule Georgia has. They play 14 teams that are expected or projected in Lenardi's bracket. So that's where I'm going to start out with. Now let's get to the heavy-duty stuff. A little bit more of an abbreviated show here, Ingles on the Beach show today, and talk about the football team and what you should give thanks for. I did a radio segment in Athens earlier this week on the Ref, and I kind of went on a little bit of a rampage because it started out talking about what Georgia didn't do. And I get it. When you're a championship program, believe me, I write the critical analysis every week. I do a report card segment where I'm critical of players, coaches, play calls. We second guess via our questions in press conferences. We try to ask the questions of Kirby Smart and his players that we would project or imagine that fans might have. And so the media comes off as very second guessing, very hypercritical. Different strokes for different folks. Some people are more critical of areas than others. My criticism has been personnel decisions early in the year. I wasn't convinced that the best people were being thrown the ball or the people. I've given up on a few of them. For example, James Cook. I've just come to realize that Jake Fromm, for whatever reason, doesn't look his direction. And that makes me think that maybe things aren't going well in practice. I don't know. I know that Kirby Smart wanted James Cook used more in the spring, but it hasn't transpired. See, look, there I go. I said I was going to do a show about things to give thanks for, and I've already ruined it. Well, not ruined it, but maybe brought it down a little bit because I want to see more from James Cook because I think he's incredibly talented. Why do I think that? Because his teammates all say he is, and because Kirby Smart says he is. Maybe that will be more like a Christmas gift themed show, like things you wish for Christmas for Georgia. Use James Cook more. Or maybe like a New Year's resolution show. 10 New Year's resolutions for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2020. Use James Cook more. Probably not for the Thanksgiving show, right? Bad pun. I know, I'm a turkey. What I do give thanks for is Jake Fromm. How about that? How about punching that narrative right smack dab in the middle of the nose? Right when everybody wants to tell you how much Jake Fromm is struggling, and oh my goodness, should you send an apology to Justin Fields and his 2 fumbles? Oh, that's right. Ohio State has quite a margin for error in that league. Jake Fromm doesn't have any margin for error. Don't believe me? Take a look at his touchdown-interception ratio in the last 5 games. Do you know what it is? 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Wait a minute. Does that sound like struggling to you? But Mike, the perception and the percentage of passes, it's below 50%. Yeah, it is below 50%. And if I'm not mistaken, that Kentucky game, it was a downpour. And this last game was pretty wet in the first half. He did struggle. Aha! He was 1 of 7. That's right. It might have been 2 of 7 if Kyrus Jackson maybe wouldn't have dropped a slant pass that hit him in the hands. Or maybe even 3 of 7 had he not been under duress on a blitz. Or maybe even 4 of 7 had he not thrown the ball away on another occasion. There were 2 passes, though, that receivers were open and they didn't catch it. The Brian Herrien wheel route, tough throw, receiver peeling off. He missed him. He threw 6 feet wide. It was a bad throw. George Pickens, I challenge you, go back and watch the tape. Now, when I had heard that George Pickens slowed up a little bit, I thought, well, of course he did. It's a flea flicker. But you go back and watch George Pickens about 10 yards before the ball arrives, and he takes his foot off the gas. I'm not putting that one on Fromm, folks. I was wrong. I wrote it Saturday night before I watched the film. You go back and watch it, and Pickens slows up. I'm putting that on George Pickens. He slows up with the ball in the air. That was not a Jake Fromm problem there. You would think that George is a tremendous receiver. I don't think he knew that Jake was going to get it to him. But even so, let's take all that aside. You want to argue the point that Jake, with the glove and the glove on and the glove off, that was terrible. That was, that's something that should have been worked out before the game. I don't know how Jake Fromm is in his 3rd year as a starting quarterback and still isn't sure whether he should wear a glove in the rain or not. He did say he didn't play much in the rain in Warner Robins. I don't have a rain chart. I can't tell you how often it rained on him in high school. Look, Jake, from a combine standpoint, the thing that comes out of this that's legit is the hand size. And you better believe that the NFL teams will be all over that. Does Jake Fromm have big enough? You think, this is crazy. What do you mean? They look at metrics for a reason. Okay? Will Jake Fromm have a trouble? Yes. This has cost him draft stock. All right? There's no question. I don't think Jake Fromm's coming out anyway. I don't know why he would. Because, to me, he's not going to light it up at the combine. He doesn't have the measurables. He's not going to run really fast. He's not going to jump. He needs to have momentum coming off a season. I think Jake will be back. We'll wait and see. But getting back to this game and why you should be thankful for Jake Fromm, beyond his 33-5 record as a starter, what is it, 33-5, 24-5 was at the start of the year. 34-6 record under Kirby Smart. So that'd be 33-6 as a starter, 34-6. That's a pretty good record. I think he's also 12-5 against top 25 team. But you want a deeper dive into the numbers. Let's get back to that. Do you realize in the 4th quarter, Jake Fromm was 4 out of 5 for 41 yards? Does that sound like struggling to you? How about the second half? 7 of 10 for 91 yards. Is that, when you complete 70% of your passes, is that a struggle? Because I don't think it is. I think it's a choice by the head coach and the coordinator not to throw the ball a lot. I think it's a decision to stay away from certain plays that carry a higher risk when you hold a 16-3 lead and you've kept Texas A&M contained the whole game. I'm not putting that on Jake Fromm. Jake executes the plays that are called or modifies them based on the formation. But wait, you saw DeAndre Swift get mad at him. That tells you everything. No, here's what it tells you. It tells you that DeAndre Swift wasn't aware that the coaches told Jake Fromm to bleed the clock on that particular snap. And because Jake Fromm bled the clock, he wasn't able to audible late. Because when you audible late is when you have motion penalties and you cost your team 5 yards. Something that Jake Fromm doesn't do very often. Even on the road at Auburn. How many times did you see guys jump? How many delay of games did you see? Versus, what did you see from experienced Notre Dame quarterback Ian Book? Try 6 penalties between delay a game and motion. How about Kellen Mond, the second all-time leading passer at A&M? Experienced quarterback, yes. 6 motion penalties. 2 delay of games, 4 false starts. How many's Jake Fromm had this year? How many's had in his whole career? Oh, that's right. We just take those things for granted when Jake is able to manage the game. We don't give him any credit for that, do we? No, because we're too busy looking for ways to tear Jake Fromm down. So I say today, look for things that Jake Fromm does well, like win football games, like represent your program as well as anybody that's ever put on that uniform, like take all the adversity and all the criticism and never lash back. Like, let his coaches sleep at night knowing they will never get a phone call about what or where Jake Fromm is at 1 o'clock in the morning, unless he forgot to renew his hunting license in some county in Georgia. Give thanks for Jake Fromm, because Jake Fromm's a winner. You know, Jimbo Fisher bet against Jake Fromm and the Georgia offense with 4 minutes and 26 seconds left at the Georgia 42-yard line. He made a bet. He bet that with his 3 timeouts, and with his Texas A&M defense, which ranks number 1 in the SEC in pass efficiency defense and in the top 10 in the country, he made a bet that he was going to get the football back. They were going to punt it to Georgia, and he had 3 timeouts with 4:26 left, and he bet against Jake Fromm. And he bet against Kirby Smart, and he bet against James Coley. He said Texas A&M's going to get the ball back. You know what happened? Georgia ran out the clock. Jake Fromm. 2 completed passes. DeAndre Swift put the hammer down. Some great running. Brian Herrien, the Georgia offensive line, the much maligned offense that we can't continue to bash enough, got the job done against a very good Texas A&M team that had won 4 straight games and 5 out of their last 6. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be tuned in to watch A&M against LSU, because I think Texas A&M is going to give LSU a better football game than most expect. Because I think Jimbo Fisher has that program going in the right. Wait, what am I doing here? Am I giving the other team credit? Yes, and you can too sometimes. When things go bad, it's not because Georgia's awful or the coaches forgot how to coach or the players forgot how. Sometimes the other team does a pretty good job, has a pretty good plan. It's not like golf where it's on you, okay? It's your game. You play your ball. I play mine. How you play your ball does not affect how I play mine unless there's some unfortunate gamesmanship going on. I hate to think that any of you would be guilty of that. But for the most part, we play our own game. Golf is a sport of solitaire. This is the club I'm using. This is the tee I choose. This is the ball I choose. Here's my ball marker. It might be different than yours. Go ahead. You seem to be a little bit further out. I'll putt when I'm ready. You putt when you're ready. That's not how football works. There's another force out there, and they affect what you do. And they have players on scholarship. And while Georgia gets a lot of great players, they don't get all the great players. And they play pretty good high school football in Texas, by the way. And there's tradition there. And those guys care. And Jimbo Fisher's making $75 million for a reason. Guaranteed $75 million contract for a reason. Good coach, good program, great facilities, 4-game winning streak momentum coming in to play a Georgia team that's had as difficult of a stretch as anyone I can imagine or that I can remember. And you might say, well, statistically, there may be other teams that have played more teams with better records or higher rankings. But I want to throw out this challenge. We've got a lot of great people that follow us on Dog Nation. My friend and coworker Brandon Adams has built a huge following of knowledgeable fans that have all sorts of numbers out there, beyond numbers that I've. Find me another team in the Southeastern Conference since the conference expanded that has played a stretch of 5 of 6 games against teams coming off a bye week. I don't believe it's ever happened. Now, I believe it's happened collectively that in a given year. I've heard Alabama fans say, well, we've had years where we played a lot of teams. Did you play a stretch of 5 of 6 games, though? Or was it more split up? I would like to know, has that ever happened? I don't have the time right now to research it. When I get done with the show, I'm going to check out that Michigan State Georgia basketball game, and then I'm going to go to Kirby Smart availability, and between Connor Riley and I, we're going to sort it all out. We're going to do the interviews with the players. We're going to listen to what Kirby says. We're going to post videos and just cover it all. College football playoff, college football teleconference, right? But if any of you can find it, I would love to see if there's been another SEC team since conference expansion that's played 5 of 6 teams coming off the bye. Because Georgia has. They've taken a lot of best punches. Tennessee was coming off a bye week. Georgia was too. Does that mean that Tennessee wasn't rested? No. Just means Georgia was 2 that week. South Carolina was coming off a bye week. Kentucky wasn't. Missouri was. Auburn was. Am I forgetting somebody in there? There's one other team in there I'm forgetting that coming off a bye week. Auburn, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina, 4. Kentucky wasn't. Florida. And that was a road, you got to go down to Jacksonville, get on an airplane. So 5 of 16. So Georgia has just finished playing this difficult stretch, and A&M comes in here and gives you a fight. I thought that was what was going to happen. And I look to the fourth quarter, and I say, Jake Fromm struggled. Jake Fromm was 4 out of 5. Jake Fromm ran out the last 4.5 minutes with A&M having 3 timeouts. Jake Fromm was 7 of 10 passing in the second half. That's not a struggle. That's finishing the game strong. So the struggle, but we haven't. If you want to choose the struggle narrative, take it. Okay, the numbers aren't there. He hasn't completed more than 50% of his passes for 3 straight games. But get a clue. There's a game plan, and when you got a 21-0 lead over Auburn, you're not looking to throw the ball. And when you've got a 16-3 lead over A&M, you're not trying to put up numbers. Kirby Smart's not going to get Georgia football in the playoff this year with this program, the way he's built it, by having his quarterback throw the ball 40 times and getting 500 yards of total offense against SEC teams. That is not how this team is built. And if you want that, then go find another team. Until Kirby's gone, he's not going to play that ball with this quarterback. Now, maybe there'll be a mobile quarterback down the road, and we'll see Georgia go to the spread, and Kirby will decide this doesn't work. But from where I sit, this is 3 straight years that Georgia is 10-1 and on the verge of a playoff spot. I'm looking around the country for other programs that can say 10-1, 3 straight years, and I come up with Clemson and Alabama. Is there anybody else? Am I missing anybody? 3 straight years, 10-1? I guess I'd have to do a little research. Maybe Oklahoma? So now we're talking about Kirby in 4 years as a head coach. Only 4 years has delivered a program that sits on the verge of the college football playoff 3 consecutive years. Is there another coach that we can look at that in his first 4 years anywhere had that impact? Maybe Nick Saban. Not Dabo Swinney. Not his first 4 years. Nope. Not Steve Spurrier. No. Steve Spurrier now. We know that Kirby entered Steve Spurrier territory when he won 3 straight SEC East titles. Nobody else had done it except Spurrier. 94, 95, 96. That's year 4, 5, and 6 for Spurrier. 5, 6, and 7. Steve Spurrier did not win a national championship at Florida until his 7th season. Kirby's in year 4. Steve Spurrier was 51 when he won his national title. Kirby's 43. Things to give thanks for. A great Georgia football program. I'm going to go and get a few of your comments before I get out of here. I just had these. I just thought, you know what? Everybody's complaining. I've covered a lot of beats since 1993. I like this beat. I think this coach is really good. And I think this team is very focused. And my concern, and the reason the whole give thing, is because I hope, regardless of what happens against Georgia Tech, I don't think they'll cover a 29-point spread. Regardless of what happens against LSU, right now, the chances are probably slightly less than 50-50 they win. I may change my opinion after watching A&M against LSU, but right now the odds would be against Georgia. Right this moment, don't know the status of Cager. But I'm concerned that people aren't going to remember the good things that this football team did en route to 10-1. That they're not going to remember the way Georgia went in there and took care of business against Florida when everybody in the country was picking against them. And everybody was telling you what a great coach Dan Mullen was. And Georgia went in there and handled the moment. And they played in that deluge against that mobile quarterback, Lynn Bowden, a game built for a Kentucky upset. And Georgia went out there and slugged it out and sloshed it out with them and beat them and shut them out. This defense, what they've done. DeAndre Swift, what he's done. The catches that George Pickens has made. The plays that Dominic Blaylock has made. These guys didn't go through spring drills. The plays that Eli Wolf, he was a forgotten man at Tennessee. He's coming here, comes up with a third down catch to help run out the clock against Tennessee, makes what proves to be a game-winning touchdown catch against Auburn. Lawrence Cager, the guy of the Miami, he can't catch a ball. We don't miss him. Go ahead, you can have Cager. 7 catches, 132 yards, right? I hope you remember these players and give thanks for the positive memories they've given you instead of looking for every opportunity you can to tear them down. And I understand that's how it works. I understand with this college football playoff, it's a beauty contest, and it's about which team looks the pretty, and not enough people understand football well enough to recognize the great accomplishments this defense has made and don't understand that you're going to play a more conservative offense when you have a fantastic defense. Remember Jim McMahon and the Bears? Jim McMahon was a pretty good quarterback at BYU. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot with the Bears. He just handed off a lot to Neil Anderson and Walter Payton because they had the Bears defense. The Georgia Bulldog defense, folks, let me tell you, you look at the numbers, they're in the top 10 in the country and darn near everything. Now, they do need to produce more turnovers. I got a story up right now for you to read. Kirby Smart will tell you they got to step on some throats. Because while we've been busy complaining about the offense, we've given the defense a pass for giving up 127 yards in the fourth quarter. That wasn't good. Now, they stuck in there. And by the way, they haven't given up a play longer than 30 yards since the South Carolina game. So while Jake hasn't turned it over since the South Carolina game, and the Bulldogs collectively haven't trailed, the defense hasn't given. Georgia's doing a lot of things really good right now. I just don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I hear the things that they're not doing. That's what I hear a lot of. And I just want to make sure everybody takes the time, Thanksgiving week, to give thanks for what Georgia has done well and appreciate it. Appreciate the moments. You know, I went back and looked at that DeAndre Swift run. This is me really reaching here. I'm just going to warn you. When he runs that final run again, you should have seen the block that Tyler Simmons had. You think Kirby Smart's like, I'm like the puppet here for Kirby. You got to look at the blocking. No, I really did. Tyler Simmons really did have a good open field block. He even caught a pass. 27-yard pass, back shoulder. Your comments. All right, what do we got here? Tom Brady scored 13 points in the rain. John Anthony said, I thought Connor Riley had a good story on that this morning, talking kind of comparing the Patriots to the Georgia Bulldogs. Thought that was very good. Well done by Connor. And a lot of truth to that. That was a really good analogy. What other comments, questions do you have for me? A couple of news items real quick. So Rodrigo Blankenship is a finalist for the Lou Groza Award, which goes to the best kicker. He's also a finalist for the Brandon Burlsworth Award, which goes to the best player who was once a walk-on. J.R. Reed, one of 5 finalists for the Nagurski Award. That's the defensive Heisman. J.R. Reed, one of 3 finalists for the Thorpe Award. That's the best defensive back. Not a finalist, DeAndre Swift for the Doak Walker. You got to go back to Garrison Hurst to find the only running back from Georgia that won the running back award. RBU, well, Alabama's had a couple winners, Trent Richardson and Derrick Henry. And the only other SEC back to win it was Darren McFadden, won it twice at Arkansas. So I think that Doak Walker based in Texas, I don't want to tell you that they don't like giving it to SEC guys, but I would tell you that since 1992, I think there's been more than 4 occasions where the SEC had the best running back. Disappointed that Andrew Thomas was not one of the 3 finalists for the Outland Trophy. He was deserving. I know a lot of people in that food chain related to that award. It was a surprise and an upset, and it was contested. So, Georgia fans, you're not the only one surprised by this. There's some experts that were caught off guard by this, and maybe even some politics involved, and take that for what it's worth. So, disappointed not to see Andrew Thomas and DeAndre Swift. They don't play for these awards. And J.R. Reed, quite frankly, he's a finalist because how good the defense is. He's only got 1 interception. That's as much a team award, and J.R. knows that. J.R.'s done a great job quarterbacking the defense, but from a number standpoint, he hadn't been there. Amos Williams, fans just won a national title. No harm in that. Amos, I'm with you. Be passionate in it. And if your team was eliminated, then go ahead and be mad. But it's not. They keep winning. I'm I'm going to tell you a short story before I let you go. For what it's worth, people always say, well, they don't really care about when you were a beat writer here or there. So I was an Alabama beat writer, and Gene Stallings was there. And Gene would have the beat writers come up to his office when he would do his coach's show. He would do his coach's show over the telephone. And we would all sit in his office, and we would only hear what Gene Stallings was saying. We couldn't hear the other half of the conversation. But he would have it catered. He would have this vegetable dip and vegetables and chicken Baumhauer's, I believe it was. He would have it catered, and all the beat guys would all come in there and eat and listen to Gene Stallings do his coach's show. And he'd listen, and we'd just hear him go, yep, you're right. Maybe we will run that play. Yeah, I might just have him throw it a little bit more next week. And one time he covers up the phone and he says, they want to get mad at me, but they can't because we keep winning. And that's Kirby. You want to get mad at him, but he keeps winning. And the formula that Gene Stallings in Alabama had is a lot like what we're seeing Kirby do. They play great defense, and they don't beat themselves. You got to beat them. All right? Now, we had the outlier game against South Carolina where there were 4 turnovers and 2 missed field goals. I don't think we'll ever see that again in our lifetime, right? But that's how Georgia does it. They play sound defense, gap integrity. When you see those runs, it's not because somebody's just blowing something. It's because every hole is filled. Every man is playing his assignment. It's a wonderful coaching job they've done. Give thanks for that. On offense, you got a quarterback. He's not going to turn it over. He's not going to throw it between 3 guys because Jake has risk aversion. He doesn't want that. He's going to protect the football because Jake knows that if he 4th down, they punt it. Good luck moving the ball on this Georgia team. And that's what he's been coached to do. And it's probably frustrating for him and maybe even his parents. Because if, in high school, Jake ran this offense and Jake looked so good in the 2-minute offense, but that's not how you win championships the way this team is built. So that's my message for today. I appreciate everybody joining me here on the Ingles on the Beat show. I don't think I was a complete sunshine pumper. I had my moments earlier. I had my complaints like everybody else. But generally speaking, my mood this week has been to give thanks for covering Georgia football, being on this beat, having the coworkers and the team that I do to work with here at Dog Nation, and thankful for the support that I get from the people that watch this every Tuesday and follow me on Twitter at MikeGriffith32. There's a lot worse ways you can make a living, and there's a lot worse teams I could be covering. And the fact of the matter is I'm really thrilled to be sitting where I'm sitting right now. And I hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again next Tuesday. Have a good one.